The Challengers. It's a disruptive. It's about the disruptive Nigerian entrepreneurs creating a billion-naira company. And Eghosa, you just showed me how these guys are. You show me their profiles. Yeah, Nonso Akpala. Yeah, fintech entrepreneur and the group managing director, CEO of VFD Group PLC. You told me he's 38 years old. 37?
No, 48.
Oh, 48. Oh, interesting. Okay, and then there's Adeniyi
Adenubi.
Yeah, Adenubi. And then, of course, Mobolaji Adewumi. Yes, he's the CEO of the mortgage bank.
Of their mortgage bank, yes.
Yes. And then there's also a Omolukun
Benga. Yeah, he runs their microfinance bank and is the IT head.
And he's the youngest.
He's the tech head and the youngest in the group.
He's the digital
guy. Whiskey. Yeah.
I like his story as well. Yeah. So you told me while they were starting out, he was the one who was being sent.
Yeah, so they would always tease him. When they were starting, he was the youngest. They said, my friend, go and get cigarettes.
And then Zubi Modi.
Yeah, Zubi Modi is best friends with Nonso. So in the way they formed it, Zubi runs the investment arm now. He used to be their banker. Even though they were friends from university, it was the first person to get a really good job in banking. So when they started, he used to be their banker.
So these guys went through a lot, right? In their come up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about folks who put their lives on the line while starting out all these massive companies, right? These successful companies. Because when you read about their stories, it's extreme. It's like, wow, these are some of the things that you guys actually had to do. And so my question to you is, do you think the hustle culture rewards people who are grounded? You have a good life-work balance going on, or the extreme ones, right? Guys they embrace the chaos, the pressure, long sleepless nights, the early mornings. From what you observed with your friends, the life that they led while they were coming up, what does success really, who does it really reward, right? The emotionally grounded ones or the ones who are extreme?
It's weird, isn't it? So long-term happiness is the emotionally grounded ones.
Yes.
But the drive, and I think human beings go through different phases in their life, and the ability to know when it's done and you can now become grounded is very important. I think the drive and the what's that word I'm looking for? The obsession with success or even the shame of failure can be a great motivator. And I think so. If you check what they did, coming together, not everybody who was in their founding meeting is still there. And now they've not made enemies, which is thankfully for them. But you know that thing about if you want to test that most men can survive adversity.
Right.
But if you want to test a man's character, give him success, give him money, give him power.
Jeez.
So it's one of those weird things where even while they were struggling, most people could cope. But when success started coming, it exposes who people are at times.
Right.
So that's to say that, in my own opinion, short answer is it depends, and you grow out of each. Nobody's a standard kind of person. Even the most balanced people you see now, you do not want to. You would be happy that you're meeting them now, not 10, 15 years ago.
It's true.
When they were really driven.
Yeah.
And when they have regrets about certain sacrifices they had to make, but they've been lucky enough to be successful enough to now say sorry to their family.
Wow.
For that time. And I think that's just, in reality, that's what really happens to me. It's a storyteller's way of taking a long time to answer.
No, bro, trust me, like, you're good. That's what it takes, though. I feel like sometimes it requires a storyteller to actually state the facts.
Yeah.
You evolve. At some point, you're going to be brutal.
Yeah.
And then eventually you become relaxed.
And you pray for the grace to be able to apologize for being brutal.
Yeah. So it's interesting you put it like that. And then let's talk about Lagos, because apparently Lagos features a lot in this book, right?
Yes.
It's almost like a character. What we know of as Lagos, when it comes to the story about Lagos, and even generally Nigeria, but Lagos, from my perspective, we always imagine Nigerians to be very extroverted, loud, go-getters, ambitious. They have no shame. They can put themselves on the line, and they don't care what you say about them. Him is chasing the bag. So, I'm curious because how does Nigeria create individuals like these? Yeah, I mean, how did Nigerians just start becoming so extremist, man? Like, was there like a beginning?
So it took me a while to guess why this happens. The thing about stereotypes is not that they're untrue, it's that they're incomplete.
Oh.
And the insight that I got, no, it's a good stereotype to be known as hustlers. Apart from the bad, we also have bad parts of the Nigerian reputation.
People are bad everywhere.
Is that what you see is selection bias. The people driven enough to leave home will be the loudest, the most driven of the bunch. Every society has their layabouts. Now, Lagos suffers it in two different ways. Lagos is also an immigrant community within Nigeria.
Oh, interesting.
Because of Nigeria's structure, Lagos has indigenous, has people who live, has the entire spectrum of behavior. But Lagos is the place where, because of the funny structure of our wealth gathering, all the other ports along the coast are dead. Everybody comes to Lagos.
Yeah.
I grew up elsewhere, but I come to Lagos, which means that I am not the best representation of the average worry boy.
Right.
I'm the driven worry boy who travel to Lagos to hustle.
Who are the majority?
In Lagos, no, it's the indigenous, the local community, the Yoruba, the Yoruba people of the entire southwest. If you're coming, Lagos was the old capital city. Lagos owns the largest port in the country. So for 40 or so years, Lagos had where the stock exchanges in Lagos, mostly the port authorities in Lagos. Lagos is where the wealth is. Now the capital was moved to the center of the country, so the wealth there is government based. Then most of the regional factories and regional whatever died in the destruction of the 80s. So Lagos is both hustle city because everybody comes there to make it. So Lagos becomes a caricature of itself in that sense. And when Nigerians now leave elsewhere and come outside, so what you see in Lagos is what you see in the average Nigerian that has traveled into your country. It's immigrants. It's looking at the immigrants or the emigre and making the mistake that that is what the people typically like. No, there are really sleepy towns in Nigeria too. There are real cool places. There are places where, yes, the reputation that we have for certain other countries, that is the way they live their life. So in that sense, Lagos features, even in Lagos features in that sense of several of the characters moving to Lagos after university. And one of the funny things about Lagos is that Lagos doesn't build up. Lagos is sprawling.
What does that mean?
So I see in Nairobi, I see a lot of high rises.
Oh, you mean literally the
high rises?
The high rises,
So Lagos doesn't build up. Lagos builds out. There are the central cities where there are high rises, but not this many.
So I thought you meant mannerisms.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. No. It doesn't destroy character. It doesn't build up character. No, Lagos doesn't build up. Lagos builds out. So it's a sprawling city. So in Lagos, you find people leaving, for them to get to work every morning, the transit is 3.5 hours.
What?
So you wake up at 4 or wake up at 5. You get to the bus and you shut down and you turn off headsets and you sleep. You take the bus to the center of the city. You walk till 5 or 6. You get on the bus. You get up by 9.
I saw a video. There's a footage showing how some cars even get washed on traffic.
Yes, they'll wash your cars because everybody's hustling. So those guys were probably farmers. The farms are bad because of the problems with insecurity, and they're in Lagos struggling. So in that amalgam, in that space, in that kiln, people are either made or broken. And you either have people like this who, for example, one of the characters said, you said we were going to live in Lagos. This is not Lagos. We are living near Lagos. and he goes back to the east, goes back to Enugu, and it's eventually called back later and says, no, I think we are now able to live in Lagos. You
can come.
And he comes. And it's a joke between the founders of how one of them said, I ain't doing this with you guys.
You guys are taking long to get the money.
No, it's not that long. No, I ain't doing this.
All this.
I can't do this.
Okay.
So he got, but funny enough, wherever I was, he ended up becoming their banker.
Oh, nice.
And their banking was not, because banking didn't need to be in the same place.
It's true.
So he had a more peaceful life than he came, So in that kind of sense, you see, you get a sense of Lagos as a character, and how young internal immigrants from different provinces in Nigeria.
So I want to ask you something a bit nuanced. In Kenya, there's a lot of fast money that, first of all, no one even knows the source. We just have a bunch of young guys who are getting the money out there. And sometimes, people tend to judge them a bit too much and say, these are bad people. So in other words, it's assumed that some of these new money individuals use an ethical means to get the money. Do you have a lot of those in Lagos?
It's Nigeria, of course.
Okay.
Of course. And it's one of those. It's the cliche, isn't it? The new generation doesn't ask where it came from,
as long as you have it.
Yeah, but the point is that there's nothing really new about that.
Okay.
every cycle of life. In the 80s, there were the cocaine boys. Then it became 419. Then it became kidnappers lying that they were 419.
Yeah.
Because the kidnapping was kidnappers and ritual killers pretending to be 419. So there's always been that subtext of people who take that shortcut. And what I learned, there was another book I worked on. I assisted an entrepreneur who built a massive oil company. And he said when he was starting out, it was difficult to tell who was who. And he said eventually, time did. Because all of those boys who were the boys that were shiny, he made his money in the 80s into the 90s. All those boys who were shiny in the 90s in that environment. It was a place, there was an avenue called Cocaine Avenue. It was his nickname, Third Avenue in Festac. Festac was a specialist he built in the 70s. He said all of them are poor. They couldn't even make it in politics where it should be easy.
It should be.
They couldn't even make it. And he said eventually time told the difference. And it's what that has given him and slightly is beginning to give me is more patience with what I observe. So say, time will tell.
I love
it. It
that.
doesn't last.
I love it.
Yeah.
And the psychological, because every one of these guys, right, Nonso, Adenubi, Mobolaji, Omolukon, and Emodi.
Yeah.
All these guys obviously have their own. They had their own reasons as to why they were committed to starting this company.
Yeah.
And for most Africans, getting out of poverty is what's common. You know, it's less to do with. I don't know. Maybe you can educate me, but I don't think most people get out there with the idea of adding more value to the society. It's first, let me get out of poverty.
Let me breathe.
Let me live with dignity. You know what I mean? And then we can talk about other things. Yeah, if there's potential over there, I'm going to invest as long as I can breathe. Yeah. Do you feel like some of these guys had psychological pressure to get out of poverty, and that's why they had to get into this?
I think so.
This hustle.
I think so. So, in Nigeria in the 80s and 90s, when we were all getting educated, I had this egalitarian system that really worked. For a long time, private schools were not allowed. So you went to school with everybody.
Yeah.
And you went to school with people who had to bring their benches on their heads, and people whose dads brought the benches on. First of all, the infrastructure was dead. So even if you're coming with a Mercedes Benz, you took your school bench in the car, which is ridiculous, yeah?
That's crazy.
But what that meant was that there was a greater mix of social strata while we were growing up in school. And what that imbibed in those who came from not so well-off homes was that they knew what they wanted. And what I see from this, so for example, you had this mix of some of the characters. One of them, the dad, didn't make it as well. Worked in estate surveying while the mom was a teacher in the government school. And what brought him out was his education. Got a job as an accountant. That's Nonso. Then you had Nonso's friends with Zubi. Zubi's dad was this big lawyer in the southeast, slightly well-to-do, but he was in the same school with Nonso, and they became friends.
Yeah.
And you had Nee. Nee's dad was an accountant. Nee was always upset that Nee was a fan of Pretty Woman and grew up trying to be like that character. And he always learned that when the character says, I buy companies, flip them, and sell them off, and I make money from the change. And he said one day he was going to do that. And you had different people. So you had people they were mostly middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class, but they were all educated in the same space in Nigeria in the 80s and 90s. All educated in the same space. By the time you got to university in the 2000s, things had kind of changed, but the federal universities were still there. So in that sense, Nigeria kind of equalized these people and gave you a kind of evil footing coming out. Of course, by the time those who had advantages. Nee was able to go to the UK and start a life, start an investment company that crashed because of the 2008 financial crisis and came back. But they came back to meet his mates who were now becoming middle class accountants in most of the accounting firms. That is the space in which they found themselves. So yes, there's that drive. There's that, but there's the kind of wealth that eventually, like what they've achieved, where it now shifts into what can I do, what do I recognize about those coming up behind me, and what can I do to make it better for them. And of course, the main idea is the set up an NGO, do what you need to do it properly and do it legally. And I think each of them have their individual outreach systems.
Yeah, it's interesting you put it like that. Lagos equalizes, the come up. It's also still on that point, does that mean people who have the psychological pressure to get out of poverty as they're getting into entrepreneurship, does it mean they have it harder than folks who are getting into entrepreneurship in the Western world?
Or they have a massive advantage, don't they?
Okay, expound on
they
that.
do, because most times what you find is that somebody who's grown up without adversity, most times they are not trained to survive struggle. And is that whole idea of the next generation? Most wealthy people are afraid for their own kids because they see the hungry people beside them who were like them when they were on the come up.
Yeah.
But their kids have become soft. Their kids can't survive it. That is the cliche, yeah.
I guess.
So what you find is that no, it gives them a massive advantage. Now, what you would say, where you're coming from, would be the idea that if there's an option to survive, how many different variations of an option do they have?
Right.
And how do they make a decision to either stay and grow when you don't have the support system around you? No, you will sacrifice. The basic idea is this. The tragedy with startups here is that you find yourself cannibalizing your company in order to survive.
Oh my God.
That's the classic idea. So you know that this 2 million should wait, but there's this medical emergency and there's no loan or no funding, so you take it and you do that, and you know that you're destroying something you're trying to build.
Wow.
So in that sense, I get it. Yeah. That happens where the support system around you means that if it's between survival and building that firm, survive.
I'll go for survival.
And most times it's the correct answer, survive. You can register another company next year and start again.
Exactly.
Because the brain hasn't left you.
My people have to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And that's one thing I found out about them. So like for them, the barbing shop failed.
Okay.
The bridge financing company almost crashed because they were learning and they were breaking certain rules. And one of their most trusted lieutenants, a staff, forgot that thing about the money is not yours, and got and mixed himself up and lost a lot of their money. Actually, ate the money and ran away. And they thought he had been kidnapped. They were scared. And one of the characters, Nonso Okwala, said that he had just gotten the massive job that would blow them out of the water, the massive opportunity with access, and while he spent 4 nights cleaning up their accounts, doing an audit on their accounts, with his aide having been the one to have robbed the company and left, that he said he came this close to telling his friends, let's shut this thing down.
Yeah.
We are doing well, because it was a choice of between staying where they were and going to his new job with Hairs Holdings, which was this massive investment company that had been opened in 2010. This was 3 years into their business. And he said that night, when he was doing the work, because he had a weekend to do that work, to clean up the books after this disaster where they had lost everything, found out they had lost then for them it was massive, they couldn't account for about 7 or 6 million naira out of their portfolio, and they had to repay loans, and he said that they had to acknowledge loans had been repaid. He said that night, because the money was tiny, and he was looking at his salary could pay, his new salary could pay off the loans and pay off the entire capital of what they were building. It was ridiculous.
Exactly.
But he said he finished the audit that night, they cleaned up the books, and they found their way back. And within 6 months of that time, that's when everything blew up for them.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It gets darker before dawn.
Always.
As an author, what excites you the most about these guys? The success that they've managed to achieve, or the come up? No,
it's the pedigree. It's what it speaks to about that things are changing. So we are aware of we know in theory most of all these structures that we've received from colonizers, for want of a better word, limited liability company, law, constitution. We know those paperwork. Our parents are educated, they knew them. But we also know that business is one man. It is my company. I don't care if there's a board of directors. If I make a decision, they follow it.
Yes.
We know the idea. And that kind of sense destroyed people like my dad, because they built up the wealth, but their wealth waxed and waned. Their businesses waxed and waned with their own health. What intrigued me about them was the very thing that they did, and they are not the only ones. They were just the ones who were close enough to me, whom I had access to tell their story, that they founded their business as a group. From the very beginning, that they had fights, that they preserved that business, that they had moments when it was better to close it down and take their salaries, and they'll be well off and they'll be very happy. But they kept at it. What seemed like a hobby at one time couldn't even afford to employ them. And that after a certain time, when they were now becoming borderline C-suite executives, they each resigned from their jobs to come and run the business.
Right.
That is what's intriguing. The come up, yes, you could say that, but also what the come up means for what's happening at least specifically in Nigeria, among those born between the late 70s and the early 80s. They call them Xennials. They're between Gen X and Millennials.
Oh, interesting.
The older Millennials, the younger Gen Xers. And that idea of, and we recognize ourselves. We watch the same programs. We watched the same British programs. We
wrestling.
Wrestling. There was this funny. They were funny. The gods are not. The gods must be crazy. We watch the same shows on television. We watch the same because our different Kenyan Broadcasting and Nigerian Television Authority ordered the same shows.
You know what I mean?
There was Michael, what's his name? There was this funny comedian who couldn't get anything right. Some others do have them. We watch ridiculous stuff together. Mr. B, So we kind of, and I recognize, I think I'm also beginning to see it here. There's a more collaborative way of looking at things, where when we see the shocks that happened here, it was 2007.
Right.
For us, it was the 90s, 10 years before yours, and when the military era was there. And when we see the kind of shocks that happened, it shocks us because we thought we had developed, we had been forced at least by this idea of creating a Kenyan nation, of creating a Nigerian nation of many disparate groups. We are the products of that experiment.
Right.
And the problem is that right now in Nigeria, at least there are centripetal forces beginning to increase to pull us apart again.
Yeah.
But there's a cohort of people in the middle, generationally, who were trained to learn that Nigeria existed, and they actually founded companies in that premise, even when they had to fight against themselves and the others. So for me, that is what's important about this story, the interpersonal relationships, situating it in a larger context of storytelling, while also assuring the readers or potential readers that it is not as boring as I'm making it seem. It's actually quite fun.
No, it's not boring, bro.
There's a lot of gossip.
Yeah, for real?
There's a lot of fighting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of drama.
Let me tell you a story that excites Kenyans. Is there corruption? We would like to learn from them.
In that sense. So
yeah, I'm joking.
Of course, in that sense, I had to create antagonists.
Okay.
And when you have access, when the people tell you their story, and you can find out who, there were really no villains you could use. So the antagonists had to be outside. So for example, one of the major antagonists, and they had to be personifications of other things. So for example, the regulatory environment was really difficult for them. The capriciousness of rules.
Yeah.
And those were the kind of things, and just the environment at which, so those were if you read it, you get that sense that you're inside a system, you're walking towards something, and something just shocks you.
Now because of that, are there certain characters or one of these individuals who did something that's morally questionable, and you couldn't really judge them. All you can do is sympathize.
Yeah. So if there's
maybe you can give us some details.
If there's anything close to that, which you should read the book to find out.
Yeah, of course. We don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the closest to that will be their employment strategy when they started out.
Yeah.
So when they started out, they couldn't afford the best of the best. So they decided to employ, but they had grown up with, they had been working in finance for a while. And they knew friends who had moral failings. They didn't have, to be fair.
Yeah.
So they employed those who had failed for some reason. Those who had been kicked out for...
Why? Because was it cheap labor?
They were cheaper.
Okay.
They were cheaper.
Yeah.
But they knew that they were brilliant at their work.
Yeah.
But so they knew that with better supervision, they could be protected from the mistakes they had made that made them lose their job in banking and the rest.
Right.
It was a strategy that they abandoned after 2 years.
Any reason why?
Yeah, because those guys still stole. So even under supervision.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it wasn't. So yeah. So it wasn't. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Although they were. Yeah. So I think that's the closest to them, because I think that's something else I also find really intriguing about them. They were that trained enough that, like I told you, one of their hard, fast rules was you could insult anybody, but you couldn't call anybody a thief.
I find that to be so interesting, but it's okay.
Hard.
Wow.
Yeah. Because even if you saw something you suspected, even amongst them, that why is that happening?
Yeah.
It was your duty as somebody in the firm to find out why it was happening, and not go the lazy route of accusing.
Yeah, you need to be accountable anyway.
Exactly. So accountable for your accusations.
Yeah.
While you knew that everybody was obeying the rules. Right. And most times, even after they had the issue with that early staff who did that and left, that kind of set the standard for the way they built their company. Hard corporate governance rules, a lot of paperwork that seemed unnecessary at the time, but has prepared them well for where they are now.
There's certain stories I've heard of founders and owners of businesses, CEOs, and that kind of thing. All this bunch of people. It's almost as if they have narcissistic tendencies. Yeah, it's almost as if you're Machiavellian. Yeah, you act like you care, but you don't really care.
Yeah.
Anything for the bag, as long as the means justifies the ends. Do you think capitalism favors those traits?
It might seem to, but it never really
Especially
lasts.
at a level that these guys are playing.
Exactly. So it might seem to. I think for them, what they have that protects them from that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it must be there because you build to a certain level that it forces that personality on you. What they have is that they have primum inter pares. They rotate leadership amongst themselves. And nobody is better than the other. Like I said, they fight. Even the idea to even sit down for these interviews, one or two of them said that, why? We haven't done anything yet. Why are we giving interviews?
There's nothing to celebrate. Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I don't think you know what you guys have done.
Yeah.
So even then there were disagreements about sitting for this interview. And it was only when they saw what the writing direction was that I received some of the most perfect praise. And I said, oh my God, this is really good. Oh, this is us? We did this?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, you did that.
Yeah.
So the cliche exists of the really vicious billionaire or business person. What saves people like this, for example, you have the real life stories of people coming together, Steve Wozniak and the rest, and one person becoming the lead, forgetting that it was 3 or 4 people that founded Apple, or the 3 people that founded Microsoft. You now know of only one. But behind the scenes, even in Microsoft, there were people who could call Bill Gates and say, shut it. You know?
Yeah.
It always exists. There's always the face of the business. Like for this business, Nonso Okpala is the face of the business.
Yeah.
But behind the scene, there are 5 co-equal people.
Yeah. It's interesting how some of them were not open to you getting out there and sharing their stories.
Yeah.
In this day and age, especially for, just basically the modern entrepreneurs, they feel like visibility is so important. Yeah. Like you need to put your face out there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost as if you have to be a celebrity. Do you think that's true?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
So specifically for these fellas, those who didn't want to tell the story feared what exposure does.
Yeah.
The taxman is now more aware of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
And it does. And of course, in a culture where there's a lot of difficulty, more people are now, Benga is doing that well. Mm-hmm. So a lot more people have become aware of what you guys are doing. Those who agreed to sit for the interviews, I think they got the strategic advantage that they would have. We're talking about their business on Kenyan radio.
Yeah.
While the others actually recognized, I think Nia Adenubi most of all recognized the uniqueness of what they had done. Yeah. And how they had done it. He kind of, him and Nonso kind of have a way of pulling back and seeing. While the rest were more intense on, we still need to keep building. Yeah. And it's also followed the age. So Nia, Nonso, and Zubi among the older ones, while the younger ones are still there. What am I saying, old and young? It's just a span of 7 years between all of them.
Okay.
But even then, you can see the small differences in personality between them. Bolaji was brought up in the barracks. Went to a barracks school. Went to a military school.
Oh, interesting.
And that is the way, regimented, and it was perfect for them starting up because he was the one who sat down and was get the documentation done. Mm-hmm. Nonso was a bit of the dreamer. Nonso had an idea and would dream and everything. Nii was really disciplined, and Nii was the flamboyant one who went for the meetings, had this slight British accent which can open doors.
Yeah, we can always open doors.
Exactly. While Benga was the tech guru. There were those who dropped out. The person who designed their logo, the second person also told about the idea, left in 2012.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, left, and life happened, and he just, he left. I think there was a kidnapping incident. He was kidnapped for ransom. Yeah. By then, he was already drifting out and just said, I'm done. Left. Yeah. One of the first founders, Chukwuma Kalu, who is into agri banking now, is the one who left, who was one of the highest. He had a lot of money when they were much younger. Left in 20. Left just a year before they went public, or something funny. Yeah,
I like.
And they told these stories.
Yeah,
and they told the stories of conflict. They told the stories of fighting, and which was really. I thank them for that. Yeah. So if I could add something about narrative, about creative nonfiction, because we're talking about it during the break. So there's this idea that what makes a true story interesting to tell. And I've always talked about how writing and grammar has kind of created a false line between fiction and non-fiction, where with the way we tell stories orally, we put motivation, because that's the way to understand. So you see something observed, you put motivation. Maybe that's what the guy was thinking when he did that. You put maybes, you put perhaps. And when you're writing facts, you have to be very clear. But no, not really. So narrative nonfiction, the technique that I use, the Americans are really good at it. You see it with most of their true life stories and the rest. Is using the tools of fiction to tell true stories. And people say, what are the tools of fiction? Oh, it's just character, conflict, setting.
Interesting.
And once you're able to manipulate those things, you're able to tell really, really engaging stories of dry facts in a way that is true to the people you're talking about, in a way that protects them, but also tells the truth of their stories.
Yeah.
So it's something that I've been pushing for. And if anything, if this happens and this succeeds and different people recognize it as a way to go, the great Biavanga Wainaina was brilliant at it, from his essays to his own, may rest in peace ever. Yeah. And from his essays and his non-fiction work, you could see that is the technique I'm talking about.
By the way, what's some of the feedback that you received from the engagement at Alliance Francaise?
Oh, that I was a very funny, handsome man, which is also always happy to know. I have a voice for radio and a face for television.
That's good stuff.
But seriously though, it was a preview. So it was mostly from the excerpt that I read and the idea that I got. So most people are excited about it. Some of them tease me that I'm going to get sued because it's non-fiction, but it's a risk that you take, even if we need to change the way our litigation goes with true storytelling. There's this idea where because the courts are so separate from us, people just do a court injunction, and they say because of irreparable harm, holds the book from publication.
That's so sad.
So it happens a lot, and I think it has and that's what has destroyed the narrative non-fiction segment of as a genre of literature. We hope that we can change it slowly and slowly by telling true stories, and I hope that Kenyan entrepreneurs can shed a light on their process, not just by creating self-help books of do this is how I did it. No, by just telling the human stories.
It's true.
The children will learn from them. You don't need to give 23 ways to make it. No, just tell your story.
I love that. that. And as we wrap up, 3 final questions. Amongst the friends, who would thrive in Nairobi, in the business environment? Of course. Or maybe even just the social life. But, the way you've engaged with them.
Social life.
Yeah.
Niyi. Niyi will thrive in your social life.
Yeah. What's up with him?
Oh, he's a cool guy. He's the one who, when they were starting out, he had a pipe.
What?
Why does a 24-year-old have a pipe?
Exactly, man. Because he's got old man vibes.
Yes. No, he had a knapsack and a pipe.
Okay, cheers.
It was
culture.
Just bohemian-looking fella,
Very cultured,
So I think it would thrive in your nightlife with what I see, the way you guys groove here, it will be good.
Yeah.
And in terms of your other social life, Nonso Benga will be really happy. In terms of your business and the discipline of what I see in your business, I think Mobolaji will blow you guys out of the water. That gentleman is disciplined.
By the way, you think Kenyans have an impressive business acumen?
From what I see, at least compared to, I hear that there's a certain ethnicity here that is known for that. I will not get into trouble by naming them.
Well,
but there's a certain ethnicity that are called the Igbo,
but it's actually
Igbo of the East.
Yeah, the Igbos of Kenya. They're here.
So we know them.
Yeah.
And even when like we founded the business here, we've been here, we've been doing business here so in my other life, I'm a publisher.
Nice.
Apart from being a former medical doctor, and our publishing company, Narrative Landscape Press, who also published me, we're in East Africa now.
Nice.
And in the 1 year, we've learned how structured your business environment is. It's really lovely. You guys take it for granted, but it's really, really good.
It can be better.
Okay.
Aside from the hefty taxes we pay, it can be better.
Yeah, it's true. We have oil money to cover up our cracks.
All right, so another question. What's the one thing that readers could misunderstand about the storyline or even the characters that you'd like to clarify?
Is there really anything that I can think? I think it might be applicability. Why does this matter to me? Because it's a Nigerian story.
Maybe you can talk about that.
Writer. But what I think it does is that, like, that's why I speak to the similarities between our different spaces and our different cultures.
Right.
And once they see that, they will recognize themselves. Because all stories are universal if they are told well enough. So that's why I've tried to situate it as in its generation and in its function, and how eventually those guys who were the young guys, within a decade and a half, they found themselves becoming the older guys in the room.
Interesting.
So they had this investment opportunity in one of the greatest companies in Nigeria right now, and they had a clash over whether the new guys needed to wear suits or ties coming into, and they had to stop and say, "Shit, this. We are now complaining about suits." And ties and opening up, they felt so embarrassed. But even the culture clash went through, and that business didn't happen.
Oh, interesting.
But those guys have become massive, almost even bigger than what the VFD has done. And they had there was a time when they invested in that firm.
Correct.
So it's weird. Yeah.
And final question for young entrepreneurs, guys who are in the startup ecosystem, or just readers, people who are excited about stories. What's the one truth you would like for them to get off of the challenges that they can use to, better their lives?
It's such a cliche that I want to say. Please tell all readers to forgive me. They've heard it before. If you want to go quick, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Go together.
It is a cliche because it is true.
No, but it's very true. Man. It's true. Yeah, so you got to have a balance.
Yes, you must.
I love it. Thank you so much. So for folks who are excited about this book, where can they buy it?
So the book is out in 2 weeks. It will be in most major bookshops in the country. Published by Narrative Landscape Press East Africa. It will be out in the early weeks of June. Let's say that East Africa enjoys something that we don't have, because we produce our books in Southeast Asia. So you guys get our shipment of books 4 weeks before we get them in Lagos.
Oh wow!
I am very upset by that. So you guys will have the books in about 2 weeks plus.
Awesome. So I'm gonna say something random. Our president made a joke the other day. I don't know whether you remember. He was I don't know whether he was in West Africa. I can't remember exactly where he was. So he said something like Kenyans speak really good English. We sound like we speak good English compared to Nigerians. You know what I mean? And then it opened a whole can of worms on the internet.
On Twitter?
Yeah. The Kenyan versus Nigerian. Yeah. And then some Nigerians were like, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Let's talk about our innovation. Let's talk about our entrepreneurial spaces. Yeah, so on a lighter note, I want to ask you, are you impressed with the way Kenyans speak? Or you think you guys edge us?
So there are two distinct Kenyan accents I've always loved. So there was a friend of mine who used to laugh about how they never said "the," they said "da." Then there was another accent where the enunciation was so beautiful that we used to think it was a foreign accent until they said, no, there is a laugher. You know what a laugher is?
No.
A locally acquired foreign accent.
Laugher.
And it's from television. And I always used to find it so beautiful to hear. It was this mid-Atlantic accent that you guys have.
No, it's African one.
You guys might win there. At least I'm your guest, so at least I can leave this place safely. When I get back to Lagos, I will.
But you guys have literal giants over there, literary giants.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, 100%. That one we have to give you respect. Thank you so much for coming through. In case somebody wants to share your story, how long are you for in the country?
Well, I leave on Thursday evening.
Oh, awesome.
But I'm around. I'm teaching creative writing tomorrow.
Where's this?
I think I have no idea. My publisher, Wendy Njoroge, knows. She's been leading me by the nose to different places.
Right.
But I hope that I'll be interacting with about a group of 20 young Kenyan writers before I head out on Thursday. Yeah,
maybe you can put your social media out there. Maybe somebody wants to host you online.
So I'm at Imasuen in all social media.
Nice.
And Eghosa Imasuen on Facebook. But everywhere else is just Imasuen.
Good stuff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Imasuen, for coming through and for sharing with us your truth.
Thank you so much.
It's been real. All right, guys, that was of course, the hashtag is AfterHours on Spice, and that has been Culture Kitchen, hanging out with the brilliant author and publisher. He goes by the name of Eghosa Imasuen. Yes, all the way from Nigeria. Yeah, but Pan-African vibes. He's all over the place. Sawa. When we come back, there's a lot going on this hour. I'm going to hook you up with some awesome news soul. We will kick it off with some India Ari, Psalms 23, and more conversations. Remember, the phone lines are always open at 0719012600, and I'm live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. The stream is live, www.spicefm.co.ke. Twelekazi.
want more of the classics and the hits you love. Neo Soul.
You don't really rock with